The glow of his phone screen cut through the darkness at 2:47 a.m., and what Marcus saw made his breath catch in his throat. 3 words that would change everything. I'm coming over. Marcus Chen had never been the type to take risks. At 34, his life revolved around predictable routines: wake up at 6, get his daughter Emma ready for school, work his shift at the hospital as a nurse, pick Emma up from after-school care, homework, dinner, bedtime stories, repeat. Since his wife died 3 years ago, spontaneity had become a luxury he couldn't afford. He was a single dad with a 7-year-old who depended on him for everything, and that meant playing it safe. Which is exactly why sending that text had been so completely out of character. It had happened on a Friday evening. Emma was at his mother's house for a rare sleepover, and Marcus found himself alone in his apartment with nothing but a frozen dinner and the sound of his upstairs neighbor's footsteps. Sarah Mitchell had lived in the apartment above his for nearly 2 years, and in all that time, they'd exchanged perhaps 20 words. She was the definition of distant, always dressed in business attire, always in a hurry, always alone. Her expression seemed permanently set to, "Don't bother me," and Marcus had learned to simply nod politely when they crossed paths in the hallway. But that night, emboldened by loneliness and maybe half a glass of wine, Marcus had done something ridiculous. He'd found her number in the building's emergency contact list and sent a text. "I know we've never really talked, but I made way too much pasta, and it seems wrong to let it go to waste. Interested in being neighborly. Smile." It was a lie, of course. He'd made a frozen dinner for one. But something about the empty apartment had made him feel brave, or perhaps just desperate for human connection that didn't involve superhero cartoons or parent-teacher conferences. He'd waited 5 minutes, then 10, then an hour. No response. Marcus had felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment as he realized what he'd done. She probably thought he was some kind of creep, hitting on her through text messages. He'd gone to bed that night mentally drafting an apology he'd never have the courage to deliver. Then came the weekend. Saturday passed without incident. Sunday, he and Emma spent the day at the park, and he successfully avoided thinking about his mortifying attempt at flirting. By Monday, he'd almost convinced himself it never happened. Until 2:47 a.m. Tuesday morning, when his phone lit up the darkness. "I'm coming over." Marcus sat up in bed, heart pounding. Was this real? Was she serious? He typed back with shaking fingers, "Now. It's almost 3 a.m. The 3 dots appeared immediately. "I know. I'm sorry. I need help. Please." Every protective instinct Marcus possessed kicked into high gear. He threw on sweatpants and a t-shirt and opened his apartment door just as Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs. But this wasn't the cold, composed woman he'd seen in the hallway. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed and wild, and she was clutching a small bundle wrapped in a towel. "I didn't know who else to call," she said, her voice breaking. "You're a nurse, right? I've seen your scrubs." "Yes, but what?" She thrust the bundle toward him, and Marcus's training took over. He carefully peeled back the towel to reveal a tiny kitten, barely breathing, its fur matted and body cold. "I found her in the parking lot," Sarah said, words tumbling out in a rush. "She was in a cardboard box by the dumpster. I think someone just threw her away. She's so cold, and I don't know what to do, and the emergency vet doesn't open until 7, and I know this is crazy, but I saw your text, and I remembered you work in healthcare, and I thought maybe." "It's okay," Marcus said, his voice calm even as his mind raced. "Come inside. Let's see what we can do." For the next 4 hours, Marcus's small apartment became an emergency animal clinic. He showed Sarah how to warm the kitten gradually using heating pads wrapped in towels, how to check for dehydration, how to offer small amounts of kitten formula using a syringe he kept in his first aid kit. Sarah followed his instructions with intense focus, her hands gentle despite their trembling. As dawn broke through the windows, the kitten, no longer limp and cold, let out a tiny, indignant mew. Sarah laughed, and then she started crying. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping at her eyes. "I'm such a mess. You must think I'm insane, showing up at your door in the middle of the night over a cat. I think you're someone who couldn't walk away from a creature that needed help," Marcus said softly. "That's not insane. That's kind." Sarah looked at him then, really looked at him, and something in her carefully constructed walls began to crack. "I got your text," she said. "About the pasta. I saw it Friday night. You don't have to. I stared at it for an hour, she continued. I must have typed and deleted 20 different responses. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say yes so badly. But I've been alone for so long, and I've gotten so good at it, and the idea of letting someone in, even just for pasta. She trailed off, shaking her head. I've built this whole life where I don't need anyone. Where I can't be hurt or disappointed or left behind. And then I found this tiny, helpless thing that someone threw away, and I realized I was about to do the same thing, throw away a chance at connection because I was too scared to try. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, some tight knot of loneliness he'd been carrying for 3 years. You know what I didn't tell you? He said. There was no pasta. I made that up because my daughter was gone for the night, and I was eating a frozen dinner alone, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd had an actual conversation with another adult about something other than medication schedules or parent-teacher conferences. Sarah smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he'd known her. So we're both frauds. Apparently. The kitten mewed again, stronger this time, and they both laughed. I'm going to keep her, Sarah said, stroking the tiny head with one finger. I'm going to name her Second Chance. That's a terrible name for a cat, Marcus said. I know. But it's the truth. They took the kitten to the vet that morning, riding together in Sarah's car as the city woke up around them. The vet confirmed that Marcus's emergency care had likely saved the kitten's life and that with continued attention, she'd make a full recovery. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Sarah fell into a new routine. She'd text him updates about Second Chance's progress. He'd invite her down for dinner, real dinner this time, which Emma helped cook with enthusiastic chaos. Sarah taught Emma how to properly hold the kitten. Emma taught Sarah that not all noise and mess was bad, that sometimes it meant life and joy and family. 3 months later, as Marcus and Emma and Sarah sat together on his couch watching a movie with Second Chance purring between them, Emma whispered, "Dad, I like when Sarah's here. It feels like we're all taking care of each other." And she was right. Because that's what they'd learned in the early morning hours of that Tuesday, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need someone, that walls built for protection can become prisons, and that second chances come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. All it took was one flirty text, one late-night cry for help, and 2 people brave enough to open their doors and, eventually, their hearts.